Hello, everyone, and welcome back to podcast. What are we doing here today, guys?
I think we're talking about Star Wars. Oh, shoot. Did I watch the wrong thing this morning? Crap.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, it turns out we're actually supposed to be watching Star Trek, the original series. I am Brandon. That was Dan who messed everything up. And we got Paul here.
Yo. What is up? Another episode. Let's do it.
And today we are hitting Season 1, Episode 11, the Menagerie Part 1. There's a lot of ones in that. The original air date was November 17th, 1966. And, okay, just a quick game for this one. Do you guys want to guess what shot we get at the beginning of this episode?
The ship, as always.
I was thinking more of Kirk's butt.
No, it's no. Paul was right. It's the Enterprise is orbiting. If they started an episode with a shot of Kirk's ass, like I don't know if I would be off put or more intrigued. Like, where is this going? Like, what does this lead to?
We're going to the pleasure planet.
We're going back to
I've been asking for that arc for a while.
Yeah, I want a whole just like an entire season. Not even a season. Like I want that to be its own show. Just like the mishaps on the pleasure planet.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that would be interesting. The mishaps, quote unquote.
Yeah. But yes, they're orbiting a planet, and we're actually on the planet now. And there's a bunch of people wearing Starfleet uniforms that are just kind of in like this outside like quad area. And Kirk and Spock and McCoy, the big three, beam down to the surface of this planet. And they're greeted by a woman who welcomes them to Starbase 11. More ones.
The graphics seem to have gotten better by this episode because if you look in the background, there's a Saturn-like planet.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And it looks really awesome with the purple sky.
Yeah.
Or atmosphere.
Yeah, I wonder if like obviously that'd be really cool to see every day, but after a while it just becomes like the moon and it's like whatever. It's just like ring planet. But like just like, if you're just visiting there, I bet that looks amazing.
For sure.
So yeah, they're greeted by a woman who welcomes them to Starbase 11, and she says that the Commodore is waiting to see them, and Kirk is curious to know why, Kirk's not curious, the Commodore is curious to know why they suddenly changed course and went to the Starbase. Kirk says that they received a message asking them to divert there immediately, and the woman says, like, hey, we didn't send no message. So right away, like, we're getting some stuff I wanted. Like, I wanted to see a glimpse of, like, the Federation or, like, Starfleet as a whole. So we get to see a little bit more of that, which I was pretty excited for.
I'm not sure. I noticed one thing about the lady. It seems like she has a sun pin on her clothes and not one of the regular Starfleet emblems.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have a note where later I noticed that it was something with the big three that they had different emblems within their Starfleet thing. Yeah, like she had like a completely different thing. That's why in the very beginning of this episode I was like, are they Starfleet? Like, because the uniforms are similar but the insignia is different.
Yeah.
And then I looked at Kirk's and he's got kind of the classic one with like the ship in the middle, and then you look at Spock and McCoy's and they have like a circle inside of theirs with like a line through it or something.
See, I didn't even notice all that. They must like
just denote the different sectors or something.
Yeah, different sectors on the ship maybe.
So they follow the woman to meet the Commodore, and he doesn't understand what's going on. And Kirk tells him that Spock received a message from Captain Pike from the pilot, which hadn't aired yet at this time. So this would be the first time people are hearing about Captain Pike. And the message urgently requested them to divert to the base. So Commodore Jose, which is his first name, his name is Jose Mendez, but they just call him Jose the whole time. So I'm just going to call him Jose. But Commodore Jose tells Kirk that it's impossible that Pike sent the message, and Kirk doesn't understand why. So Jose leads Kirk and the crew to an intensive care unit of their medical bay, and he asks Kirk if he's ever met Pike, and Kirk's like, yeah, I met him when we transferred command of the Enterprise. And he mentions that Spock had served under him for several years, and Spock is immediately like, it was 11 years, 4 months, and 5 days. Like, all right, dude, like, you like Pike much? Like, Jesus.
No kidding.
Like, kind of make Kirk feel like, wow, okay.
What, you got a crush on him?
Yeah. He's like, how long have you been with me, Spock? And he's like, I don't know, like a couple of years.
He's like, what, do you think about Pike every day while you're serving under me?
Yeah, you like him so much, why don't you marry him? It's like, that would be logical, actually. And then they just go get married and have a great life together. But Jose explains that Pike was exposed to Delta rays while saving some kids from a Class J starship that experienced a ruptured baffle plate. Of course, he's saving kids, like, because he's a hero. And we heard about a baffle plate once before. I don't remember which episode it was. Oh, it was Charlie. No, not with Charlie. It was with Gary Mitchell. Yeah.
Yeah. When he was messing with that stuff, they kept doing that technical jargon. We were complaining about it.
Yeah.
Now they're bringing it back. So
we get a little bit of a callback at least. They were like, "What's that thing we used? Baffle plate." You say that one again. So they enter the room, and Pike is in like this really big black like machine and it turns to face them as they enter the room, and his skin's like real messed up, like real badly damaged, and the right side of his face has like this big purple and red looking like mark.
At this point, I thought he had like space herpes from pleasuring all those green women.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, dang, that's a pretty bad case.
It actually almost looks like the stuff from the Miri episode, but I mean, like, we know that's not it, but similar makeup technique. But I know, like, we just talked about this before we started recording, but yeah, I know this machine from like just various pop culture stuff, and I didn't know that it came from Star Trek. So it's fun to like see how many references actually come back to this show or like this series. But the Commodore asks Pike if he remembers Kirk and his crew, and the machine beeps twice, which indicates no. So Jose tells Pike that he thought, maybe he'd make an exception for them, but he just beeps no again. And so Kirk is like, hey, if there's anything that, you need, Pike, just let me know. And Pike just beeps twice again. So he's like, nah, I'm set, homie, thanks.
I'm cool.
Yeah, we all good here. So they turn to leave, and Spock asks Pike if he can stay for a moment, and so the machine beeps once, which indicates a yes. And so everybody but Spock leaves. So Spock just starts talking to Pike, and he's like, hey, you know why I'm here, and it's only 6 days away at maximum warp. It's in quotations because it's the big secret. And that Spock says that he has everything well planned, and so Pike just beeps twice. He's like, no. Spock sits down, and he's talking about how he's never disobeyed Pike's orders before, but this time he has to, and Pike is still beeping no at this point. And Spock says that he's like, I know it's treachery and it's mutiny, but I have to do this. And we just like fade out as Pike is still beeping no. That's all he can say. He's just like, no. But like he can't tell like which part he's objecting to. He's like, the mutiny's fine, but whatever else you're planning, that's a no.
Like, don't do it.
The one thing I got to say about that whole scene is, it always happens, like, other thing reference real quick, like when Groot says I am Groot, and then the other person keeps talking, and then so what that I am Groot meant,
yeah,
or whatever. Like, it's like Spock having a conversation with these beeps, and like I can kind of see where Captain Pike is having a conversation back and forth with them. So he's kind of talking, letting us know the storyline and why he's doing what he's doing out loud. Because you got to think about it. He can't say anything out loud about what's going on to anybody else because it's what's going on. So he's kind of like saying it out loud to a person who can't say anything to you, and it's going back and forth. I thought it was interesting with the whole beeping thing. That was kind of different.
I'm also intrigued right off the bat that they're setting up the plot of the story that, hey, Spock is about to break the rules.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, they set it up very early that we're going to get some insane character development from Spock and get to see something that I didn't think we were going to get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, either did I.
So we get the show's opening, we come back, and Kirk is still arguing with Jose about the message that was sent. And Kirk's going through some records that don't show anything about a message. And at this point, I'm just like, okay, so like Spock was probably lying about the message then. So Kirk argues that the record tapes must have been changed, and Jose points out that the only person that heard the message was Spock, who happens to have served under Pike, who is hospitalized. And Kirk just kind of argues that, if Spock wanted to see Pike, then he's like, he would have put in a request, and I would have granted it immediately. So they take a second to calm down, and Jose calls the record center to see if it's possible that a message could have been sent from there without them knowing it, and the attendant that answers is like, nope, that's impossible. Like, absolutely not. No way that could ever happen. So Jose says, all right, we'll check for the impossible.
One thing, though, you notice that is Kirk's complete trust in Spock. Like, he said there was a message. There was a damn message, bro. I don't care what you say. He says it. Oh, he made a mistake. No, he don't make mistakes. Like, he definitely sent he definitely got a message. He would not, he would have never told me he didn't get a message if he didn't get one. You know, that's part of that whole dynamic of their relationship right there. 100% complete trust.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like you said, like he's just really trusting of Spock and like believes that he wouldn't do anything like that, or like if he knows that if he believed that, then it would be kind of like letting himself down, like that his friend is like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's
Like
more
he's just like,
about I think it's more about his complete trust in Spock. Like he said there had to been a message. Somebody must have snuck and sent a message to him. Spock would not say there was a message if there wasn't one.
yeah,
Well, later on, they allude. I think it was McCoy basically saying that, hey, Spock can't lie. That's not part of his race. So it was taking that into factor for Kirk. He'd be like, Spock wouldn't lie to me about this.
before we do get to that point, though, do you think that, I mean, if it was logical, they could lie, right? If that was like the logical solution to something? I know we just discussed this with the last episode with the bluff about the Corbomite maneuver and everything,
Yeah.
and how like Spock probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But do you think if that was the logical choice, then they wouldn't have an issue? Because it's not like they physically can't.
I don't think you would. I think you would. I think I think he can lie. This logically lying doesn't make sense until it makes sense, probably.
Yeah.
He has. So you're saying like he can only lie if will end up being a logical result of what the end goal is.
No. What I'm saying is logically him lying. What I'm trying to say is him lying because it was a logical thing to do, not because it leads to something else. I'm saying sometimes if you tell somebody the truth, it's not gonna. Oh my god, I can't explain it right because
It doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Like the better outcome is like it's like a little white lie.
Yeah.
Like you just it's not like a big thing, but it gives you the best result.
Yeah, like I said, I know he can lie. He just I don't know. I just don't think he does.
Yeah, well, we find out in this episode he's a lying ass motherfucker. That's for sure. So we go to the records room and the attendant leaves his desk just to go do something. I don't know, like grab a Snickers or something. And Spock sneaks into the room and just Vulcan nerve pinches him. He does it to a different tech, not to that one specifically. Then he goes to a computer and he just starts like messing with stuff. But like when he snuck into this room, so like he goes in and there's like this red chain link fence, right? And on the other side of the fence, like facing his direction, is a tech like working on a machine. So this machine is facing like towards Spock. The only thing that's between them is like a machine, and then next to the machine is a chain link fence that Spock sneaks by. Does this dude have like negative peripheral vision that he didn't see Spock like 3 feet from him just on the other side of like this little fence? Like how the hell did he not see that?
Well, not only that, did Spock really have to sneak in? Like, the guy would have probably just assumed, like, hey, you're on a military base. You're probably welcome in this room.
Yeah, and he does like this cartoon, like Scooby-Doo bad guy skulking with like his hand, like he's just like slightly crouched down, like his hands up.
Like you're tiptoeing,
yeah.
Like he walked in, like, oh, hey, Spock, what's going on here? Like, oh, and then I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I wonder if that tech, like, used to be a security guard that trained at the same place the Enterprise security guards trained at, but then like somehow he got moved into this room because like he just didn't notice shit. Like, dude, okay, maybe you're hyper focused and your peripheral vision does not see this guy that's just literally a few feet from you. But like I feel like I would sense, I would be like, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right here. Like somebody's doing something.
Well, that's the thing of the term of the elephant in the room where a guy had a midget dancing, juggling or whatever, and nobody noticed that elephant walked into the room and was sitting right behind him. Like that term. So maybe he was just so over focused on something that he just didn't notice. I mean, I've happened to me before, so I get it. I just, it's just a little.
Yeah, it looked weird.
Well, when your commander tells you to find the impossible, how the hell do you do that when you've already ruled everything out? Like, hey, look at everything that's impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I better get on that.
Maybe he's just, like, super pissed about that. He's, like, muttering to himself. He's like, you didn't find the impossible. Find my transfer papers, you piece of shit. It's just like he's just
didn't call back. He didn't call back like, oh, I think it was a ghost.
Yeah,
the only thing I can come up with.
Had to be ghosts. So, in another meeting room, Jose introduces Miss Piper to Kirk, and she's the one that greeted them when they first transported onto the planet. And she says that she recognizes Kirk immediately because of their mutual friend Helen that described him. And I'm like, oh, Helen's the lady from the Christmas party. Okay, so there's a little bit of gossip from a few episodes ago.
Oh, was that the callback?
Yeah.
Was Was that? Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, Helen was the doctor from Dagger of the Mind that went down on the planet with him. The lady that was like, well, yeah, you remember the whole Christmas party thing, and like she was implanting her whole romance novel into his head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that totally went over my head. I did not catch that reference.
I knew the reference. I just couldn't figure out exactly what chick they're talking about. I knew it was some chick though.
Yeah, and that's why Kirk gets like super embarrassed that when she mentions Helen, and Miss Piper's like, oh, don't worry. She only mentioned that she knows him. I'm like, yeah, right, dude. She probably read Piper that whole ass romance novel that she wrote about her and Kirk. Like she probably sent her a copy of it. So yeah, it was a good callback. At least like it's cool they're doing that.
Did she tell her the part where she tried to change his memories to where he swept her off her feet and took her back to her room?
Yeah, no, she probably left that part out. So Piper tells Jose that their investigation has turned up very little, and she mentions Spock's service with Pike and says that he has extreme loyalty to Pike, and he does. It's really weird, like how loyal he is to a guy that's not his captain anymore. But I guess they did serve together for 11 years, so... Kirk says that a Vulcan can no sooner be disloyal than he can exist without breathing, and that goes for his current commander as well as his past. But like they're showing that Spock kind of has a preference here, and it definitely ain't for Kirk.
Are you saying he has a type?
He loves captains. We know that much. He loves a man in power.
He's like, Pike is the only one that could beat me in chess.
Did Kirk beat him when they were playing when Charlie first showed up? Because remember,
I don't believe so. I think Spock won that. If I remember,
because I remember him complaining about Kirk playing illogically, but I don't remember if they finished the game.
I remember in the middle of the game, something happened in the middle of the game. I don't think they got to finish.
Yeah, like Charlie showed up.
Yeah.
Huh.
Damn Charlie. We always come back to Charlie.
That kid ruins everything. So Piper and Jose tell Kirk that they have to consider every possibility, and that Pike can't have sent that message because he can barely move in his wheelchair, and that all he can say is yes or no with his little flashlight, and that's about it. They didn't say that, but that would have been really disrespectful. Like, hey, he can only talk with his little flashlight. So Jose explains that Pike's mind is still good, but his body's just basically useless, and that his heart is driven by a battery, which was a really detailed
what a sad
thing to say.
Existence at that
right?
point.
Yeah, how do they not have the medical technology to fix this man? Like, we've seen them do some stuff.
You can literally teleport you, like rip you apart atom by atom and put you back together.
Right.
But
and then once again,
can't
like,
fix this.
Kirk screwed this whole thing up when he killed the guy that was making android bodies. They could have given Pike a nice new android body, and Kirk screwed that up.
Oh man, that's a fair point.
I'm just curious about how much of his body is left at this moment.
Yeah, if he's like a RoboCop in there.
Yeah, like is it just the top half? Is it I don't know. Like I know it looks really weird. I'm wondering if it's a top half, if it's the bottom half, does it have any bottom part? Or is it just from the waist up?
Yeah.
Do you think anyone's asked him and like, hey, do you want to die? Like,
yeah, they just avoid that.
This would be like you're pretty much a vegetable that can only answer yes or no questions.
Yeah, like, would you like to stop existing in hell?
Yeah, can you eat?
We can put you out of our misery. You can go peacefully.
Yeah. The other thing I like is that in the future, wheelchairs evolve to become very cumbersome and like just take up a shit ton of space. I feel like they might, like, sure, he can probably use that thing, or he can move it on his own. But I mean, we have chairs that allow you to do that now, and they're not as big as a family sedan. So
the twist is it's kind of like a battle tank. In case something goes down, he's like, hey,
he does have the military
built
model.
into this.
Yeah, it's like 1 beep yes, 2 beep no, 3 beeps is like ready the missiles, and just like it just starts loading.
Like, you think I'm harmless, but I'm not.
Yeah. So back in the records room, Spock is still messing with a machine that he was working on, and he inserts like this little disc thing that fabricates a call from Starbase to the Enterprise. And on the Enterprise, Uhuru answers the call, and she gets some fake orders from Spock, who says that the orders are top secret and they are to be fed directly into the computer and scrambled. So the first attendant in the records room, comes back and he catches Spock, and they get into this like really weird shoving match, and they get like just this really small fight, and Spock ends up knocking him out with the pinch thing and continues to work. But man, Spock just like ate like 2 or 3 punches during that and just didn't give a shit. Is he just like super overpowered?
Well, he ate a few punches, and then I mean to toss him and throw him. I thought that fight was terrible. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
the choreography was terrible. The concept of it was terrible. For the first time, like I just don't get it. Like it was a terrible fight. Like
Yeah.
even the way it was choreographed, the way it fought, the way it went down, it was stupid.
Yeah. It was something, all right. But he goes back to his machine and he puts in a disc of what sounds like a recording of Captain Kirk, and it gives Uhura the confirmation that she needs to continue on with the orders. And the communications officer on the ship asks like the fake Kirk how he can know where they're going and if the destination's been scrambled, and Spock switches to another disc because apparently he has like every answer that Kirk could ever give on these little discs. And
hey, he thought ahead.
Yeah, he thought like way ahead. Like if the dude would have been like, by the way, Kirk, like what are you gonna have for dinner tonight? And like he just switches out and puts a different one in. And he's like, I'm having steak.
But my human will probably bring me lettuce.
Yeah. But the recording from Kirk says that Spock is there and that he's gonna handle everything, so not to worry about it. And it even does the Kirk out and hang up, and that's why they think it's Kirk. Like Spock got that part right. They're like, oh, he said Kirk out, he hung up. That's gotta be him.
If he would have said goodbye, they'd be like, all right, this is a red flag.
Yep, immediate suspicion. I like that that's a theme that we just keep. It's Kirk out and then hangs up.
Yeah, I didn't notice that you guys brought it up, so.
So Spock then calls the Enterprise and tells them that the ship's computers are going to handle the helm, and the course is going to be set automatically. And tells them not to discuss this with the ship's crew or starbase personnel, and that they are to stand by to warp out of orbit in 1 hour. And I assume he leaves the room, but like the guys that he knocked out have to wake up eventually within that hour, right? And do you think they're just going to go on their day and be like, that was a thing? Or are they going to just go report what happened?
I would imagine they would go report like, hey, we just got beat up. The Vulcan did it.
Yeah, that's one of those things that always annoys me in movies is like people get knocked out for an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah, for 3 days. How long have you been down? Oh, you've been out for 3 days. Oh, okay.
Like, oh shit, and then they just go right back to what they were doing. There's like NPCs in a game.
Like, how did I get on the floor? I don't remember falling asleep.
So Kirk is watching Pike on a little screen, and Pike is just repeatedly blinking no, just over and over. And that's got to be really frustrating from his point of view. But McCoy talks about how they've learned to tie into every human organ except for the brain, and that Pike can think every thought that they can, but he just can't reach out, and nobody can reach in. And Kirk points out that Pike is still blinking no, and he starts to wonder if it has anything to do with Spock. And he says that either someone sent them a message or that Spock lied about getting a message. So he started to actually suspect Spock here. And so McCoy actually argues, like Dan, you said earlier, that Spock is a Vulcan, that he's incapable of telling a lie. And Kirk points out that he's also half human. So, his human half could lie. Bones says that Spock's human half is like completely submerged, and that, if he was to be caught acting or even thinking like a human, it would be extremely embarrassing for him. So Kirk just like kind of loses it here, weirdly, saying that he's going to find out who's been interfering with his command and with his ship. So then they go on to like argue a little bit more, and McCoy gets paged to the Enterprise for a medical emergency. But before he leaves, Bones kind of like casually tells Kirk that he's going to let him know what's going on. He's like, they get in this heated argument, and he gets called away, and then he's like, I'll let you know what's going on. Which is like, it's stupid, but I really like that about their relationship, that like they're yelling at each other 1 second and then like back to being professional and friends again. But I have to wonder if like eventually something's going to come along that's like so big that they can't get over it. Like that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Right. As of right now, there's been really no hard feelings while having discussion. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, they have like this really heated discussion, but like they argue, like they just straight up argue, but it never gets personal. And like so they're just immediately able to move past it. And I'm like, damn, that's a really good friendship.
Not only that, but I think it'd be unwise of Kirk to hold a grudge against, the people he relies on for information and, what they're currently thinking to make his decision. Because I'm assuming he probably factors that all in.
Yeah, you especially don't want to hold a grudge against your chief medical officer.
Especially when he's the only one that gets you drunk.
Yeah, like don't mess with people that handle your food. Don't mess with people that mess with your body. So later on, Jose and Piper and Kirk are all in Jose's office, and Kirk has a top secret report about Talos 4 in front of him, which is the planet that they went to in the pilot episode. Jose gives Kirk the clearance to read the report and asks him what he knows about the planet, and Kirk's like, well, I know that General Order 7 says that no vessel under any condition, emergency or otherwise, is to visit Talos 4, and Jose says that violating that is actually the only death penalty that they still have left on the books, and only Fleet Command knows why. And that seems really, like, just dramatic. They can't just be like, hey, don't ever go to this planet because it's really bad. They're like, no, if you go to this planet, we'll kill you.
Yeah, no kidding. Like,
isn't that just going to draw people towards it?
Well, once you tell someone they can't do something, like, oh, hey, I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember what happened on the pilot episode exactly at the beginning to emphasize it being a no-go planet, though.
Well, I don't think they addressed that in the pilot episode. I think they just went there. So I think I think whatever happened afterwards, they're like, oh, hey, that planet's off limits, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, I know that happened with the God thing or whatever. I just don't know why we're not going there at all. Like I get when we met the aliens in the pilot, I get that, but I just understand why they would make it a no-go planet. Like it didn't make any
that's what
sense
I'm
to me.
curious about as well. Yeah, like it's not like anything terrible happened there. They essentially left the Lotians there to die out. So like, what would be so bad about going back now? Like nothing was really truly hostile there.
Yeah.
And if like the Federation already made contact and kind of worked everything out, there should be an understanding on both sides. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe something happens afterwards,
or
like after they left.
I think it's smart that they got a call back to the pilot, the original pilot. That was kind of smart of them. And though we've seen it already, so we know. So we watched the actual original pilot. I think it's smart that they used the original pilot in this to be like, oh yeah, that was a past, and here's why.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes me wish that we hadn't started with the pilot, even though it was like the logical place to go.
Yeah, because like this whole episode is a lot of the pilot. Like 90% of this episode we're about to get when we get to this one part, it's like all stuff I've seen before.
Right, but Jose unseals the record and Kirk starts to read through it. Reads that the Enterprise is the only Earth ship to have ever visited the planet, which is not true because the whole reason they went there was because of the distress signal from the crashed ship. But the record also mentions that Spock and Pike recommended that no human should ever visit again. So I guess that's why nobody's allowed to go.
I thought the signal from the ship was faked to lure more people there.
Well, there was the actual crash though, because that was how Vina got there.
They crashed there though. They didn't really visit. Like
no, it did because remember Vina was there and she was part of the crash and she was horribly disfigured, but none of the other people survived and then they made the illusion.
Yeah, but I'm saying a crash is not a visit. That's what I'm saying. He said the only ship that visited there, the Pike ship came, visited, and then left. The other ship crashed.
It depends on what you're defining it. Like they were vacationing there, but they were still there.
They were there, yeah, but it wasn't really a visit though. So like, I don't really. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
All right.
I just want to clarify.
They didn't have a mission there, but they were there.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I guess if you really want to get technical, are you really visiting if you never leave?
That's
true.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. See, there you go. That's what I'm looking for.
But now we're just getting too technical.
Yeah.
It's only logical.
So this whole time, Piper was watching Pike on a monitor, just sitting there beeping, and then like she gets her attention drawn away for a second, and then she turns back and he's gone. And she's like, "He's gone!" Like, lady, how did you lose this guy? Like, of all the people you had to watch, like this dude, you lost.
Well, not only that, she turned away for a second. Like, how would they have known, or how would he have known to disappear in that brief moment?
Yeah. Did he like turn that thing on to like warp 2 and just scoot it out of there?
He got transported. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, that could be.
But how would they know that she wasn't looking at that exact moment? That's my issue with his disappearance.
It was coincidence, just coincidence. They just snatched him out.
Yeah, because
oh, all right. I guess I'll accept that as a coincidence.
Yeah, the next thing that happens is they get a call saying that the Enterprise is warping out of orbit and refusing to respond to their signal. So yeah, it may have been coincidence. They probably did just beam him up right there, and she happened to be looking away. Like I think we can chalk that one up to coincidence. Then we go to a commercial, And I had a note just like at this point, I'm really digging this episode. They put the pilot stuff to good use, which is something that you wouldn't have seen. Like the pilot hadn't aired at this time, so this would have been all new to people. So like their introduction to Pike.
Well, a lot of shows wouldn't even acknowledge a pilot if they were to change everything like that. They would want to stay away from that.
Yeah, and like we're getting a good glimpse of the Federation, like beyond the Enterprise, and some good character development for Spock. But this whole one was a little dialogue heavy for me. But we are back on the Enterprise, and Spock is in command. Woo! And Uhura says that someone's trying to hail them, and he's like, "Nah, just ignore them." So he goes and sits in the captain's chair, and he talks to the entire crew over the PA system, and says that he's been placed in command temporarily, and that their destination is a secret, but their objective is relatively simple. And he didn't say what their objective is, but he says that Kirk has been assigned to medical rest leave until they return, and that Kirk's instructions were to obey Spock's orders as they would Kirk's.
At least Spock gets on the intercom and tells people like, hey, we're doing this thing. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, but...
Yeah, but we're doing something.
We're doing something here. You might feel us take off.
Yeah. So then McCoy enters the bridge and starts asking Spock a bunch of questions about, what's going on and why he was summoned back to the ship when there's nobody with an injury. And Spock asks McCoy to follow him. He's like, hey, come over here. I'll explain everything to you. And they leave the bridge, and Spock leads McCoy into a room where Pike is just hanging out. So Pike's just still like going crazy with two beeps all over the place. And Spock plays a message, like a fake message from Kirk, that tells McCoy not to ask Pike any questions and follow Spike's instructions. So he's like, hey, don't talk to that guy and listen to this guy. Which, like, again, he's got every tape. He's really well prepared.
He's logical. He's prepared for everything.
Oh, no, I agree. But I guess when you're about to command a mutiny that you want to cover all bases.
Yeah, I also think it's funny. He's just like walking around. Like, where's he getting these tapes? He just has them in like a fanny pack somewhere that we don't see. just walking around, a ton of tapes.
Video game logic. Where do you hide all those weapons? I don't know.
Yeah, just somewhere.
You don't want to know where I'm pulling these out of.
They're behind his ears. He's a magician. But on the bridge, Spock comes back in, and helmsman named Hansen tells him that they're being followed by an object that's about the size of a starbase shuttlecraft. And he suggests that they slow down to let the craft reach them, and Spock tells them not to take any action or make any contact. And just kind of like a side note, I'm getting ready to build some models from Star Trek, and I want a model of this little shuttlecraft. Like, I don't know why. It's just a very simple looking thing, but I really like the design of it. And that's all.
You a nerd. Get out of here. Build models now.
Yeah. Listen, I haven't started yet, okay?
You're a Star Trek nerd, man. These guys play Star Trek.
I never thought it was going to get to this point.
Oh, these guys, man. These Star Trek guys, man.
I have 2 Star Trek stickers and a shirt and a bunch of models that need to be built. I'm going.
You bought a shirt?
Actually, my wife bought it for me. She's like, "Oh, you like this ship, right?" And it was like the original Enterprise, and I'm like, "Well, hell yeah, I love that ship. It's I don't know why. Like, something about that ship is just amazing to me. Like, it's simple, it's sleek,
it's so classic looking.
It is, yeah. And yeah. So I have like 4 models of it to build of like different variations. Like my model collection just keeps growing. Anyway, so back in the little shuttlecraft, Kirk and Jose are trying to call the Enterprise, and they're not getting an answer. And Kirk says that Spock is headed for Talos 4, but Jose is like, "Look, we don't have the fuel to follow them there." And then back on the Enterprise, Spock is using the computer to confirm that the craft that's following them is the shuttlecraft, and the computer tells him that the craft is already past the point of safe return on fuel.
And Spock had that look on his face like crap.
Yeah, he's like, I really want to betray him, but not like this.
Like, I don't want him to die.
Yeah. But back on the little shuttlecraft, they have run out of fuel, and they just start to kind of coast along in space. And then Kirk says that they only have 2 hours of oxygen left, so it just keeps getting better for them. Like, why wouldn't he have turned around? There's no way he would have known that he couldn't have known that Spock wasn't going to stop, right? Like, just turn around, get a better ship.
I guess he kind of assumed that he was.
Kirk is pretty calm about. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Kirk is pretty calm about having only 2 hours of air left. Like, we got 2 hours, then we'll die. No biggie.
He's like, you want to know what happens in 2 hours? We die. No problem. I've been in this situation before.
Yeah, I just assumed that he knew that if his life was in danger, that Spock would save him.
See, and that's what I thought too. But then on the other side of that, like Spock is doing stuff he never did before. So I would be worried that he really has passed a point when he's just not going to come back.
Yeah, but everything he's did hasn't killed anybody though.
Right.
If you think about it, even when he disabled the people who doing the radio stuff, he hasn't killed anybody. He's just, incapacitated them.
And maybe at this point, Kirk is like, oh, Spock must have a good reason for what he's doing.
Yeah, he's
like
still
maybe giving
still friends
maybe
with him
giving him the benefit of the doubt somewhat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Kirk says that part of him hopes that the Enterprise doesn't come and get him because if they get on board, Spock is going to be court-martialed. And Jose's like, no, he's going to be dead if he gets to Talos 4. And he wants to know why Spock would want to get Pike there if the report says that the planet contains no benefits to mankind. And Kirk just argues that, Spock's got to have a logical reason to do what he's doing. And Jose's like, maybe he's just gone crazy.
I was just thinking, I was trying to figure out why Spock was taking Pike there. If I remember right, didn't the aliens there have some kind of like manipulation where you could take like disfigured person and make them look normal?
See, that's exactly the conclusion that I came to, or not the conclusion, but like the guess that I have is that maybe Spock is taking him there to let him live out the rest of his life in an illusion that, everything's fine.
I don't know. I personally, I have no idea what's going on. Honestly, I could speculate and get a bunch of games. I was just confused because I couldn't remember exactly what the pilot was about until I remembered the alien head with the goofy alien head dudes, and I thought, oh, okay, I remember what it's about. It's the mind thing. So like, I wasn't sure if maybe there was a hidden mission or something that happened when they first got there or something or what. I was 100% confused, honestly.
The other thing I thought about was like when Jose said that he's like, well, maybe Spock's just gone crazy. Like, I would like to see crazy Spock where he always uses his logic to kind of like come to the wrong conclusion, but it's a logical conclusion. So he's just like, he's just like walking around and somebody's like, man, I am really hungry. And then like Spock's logic is like, well, you'll never be hungry if you're dead, and just kills him. Like, I want that Spock. Like, I want him just come to the wrong conclusion, but it's logical. So he's just like whooping ass for all the wrong reasons. I don't think we're gonna get that though.
That would be like Tyrant Spock.
Yeah, that'd be amazing though. Just I think most of the time he would just kill everybody. Like, my toe hurts, won't hurt if you're dead.
Oh, they need to make a bad guy Vulcan like that at some point if they haven't already done that.
Yeah. So back on the Enterprise, McCoy is still questioning Spock about the craft, and he asks if it's Kirk. And Spock goes to the computer and gives it some orders, and the Enterprise then comes to a stop. And he orders an armed security team to the bridge and tells the transporter room to prepare to beam Kirk aboard. He leaves Hansen in command and presents himself to McCoy for arrest and says, he's like, hey, you're the senior officer and I'm presenting myself to, for arrest. What I really liked about this, though, was he tells Hansen that he's in charge, and Hansen's like, sir? Like, he has this like confused, worried as fuck look on him, like, I don't know how to be in command. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, he's just like, oh, God. But Spock says that the charge against him is going to be mutiny and that he never received orders to take command of the ship. So then the security team shows up and McCoy tells him to arrest Spock. And he's like, well, is confining you to your quarters going to be enough? And Spock's like, yeah, that's adequate. I'm not going to make any trouble. And I also think it's funny.
I was going to say, I had to laugh really hard at that. Like, oh, hey, you just committed mutiny. Like, hey, go to your room.
Yeah. And he's like, wait. Like, go to your room. Is that enough? And he's like, yeah, that should do.
That'll show me.
But like, it also leads me to question, like, okay, so Kirk is in command. Spock's the number 2. Who is number 3? Like, what is the chain? Like, what if both of them were to be injured or killed or something? Like, who is number 3 in command?
It seems like in like past episodes when Kirk takes Spock down on the planet with him, he's always kind of choosing someone different to man the helm.
Yeah, and in this case, Hansen's just like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And then McCoy is even like, well, I'm not sure what I need to do either, so I'm going to turn to Spock for this.
He's like, I'm a doctor, not a...
not a captain, damn it. Not like a, what was that, like a moon shuttle or some shit?
Yeah, I'm not a moon shuttler.
So a little bit later on, Kirk is in contact with the Enterprise, and he's on the Enterprise. and he tells them to store his craft in their hangar deck and to beam he and Jose aboard. So there is a hangar. Dan, you talked about this like our third episode in, wondering why they didn't fly down to a planet. We're like, well, maybe they don't have like a hangar. No, they have a hangar.
They just don't want to use it.
Yeah.
I never noticed it before. I never noticed it not being there before.
Well, I mean, one of the episodes we were curious about why they beam everywhere and not like just fly down to a planet, and we were wondering like, well, maybe they just don't have that capability. Like maybe they don't have a hangar on board, but no, they definitely do. But Scotty beams Kirk and Jose aboard, and then Hansen immediately is just like, okay, you're in command now. He's like, thank God, I'm done with that.
I don't want the responsibility.
Yeah, dude, he didn't want that like at all.
Which, that might be a guy you want to trust. Someone who doesn't want the responsibility and power.
Yeah, at least you know he's not going to be like a tyrant.
Right.
But Uhura calls to tell them that the engines are coming on, and Kirk orders them to reverse the engines, and Hansen just is like, hey, we can't do that. The computers are running the ship now. So Kirk tells Uhura to engage the computers, but she can't do that. And he actually just talks to the computer itself, and he's like, hey, disengage the helm. And the computer refuses and says that any attempt to disengage will disable the ship's life support system. So we get to another commercial here. And we come back to a captain's log explaining the current events and adding that they've been forced by protocol to begin a preliminary hearing against Spock. So they're just going to do this on the ship, which is pretty cool. Which, like, these ships are huge, so I wonder if they have, like, their judge deck. Like, they have beach deck, and they have, like, their mess hall, and, like, bowling deck. Yeah, and then court-martial deck.
I mean, it looks like it because the room is, either they had an empty room and they lined everything up for the court-martial, or they just have a room because everything looks like it's almost like a courtroom. Because you see, They got the three people up front, the three judges. Well, actually, you got the two judges at first because Pike isn't there. You got the two judges in the court, like the ladies had the court reporter. Then they asked Kurt, does he want counsel? He waives his counsel. So it's almost like a trial.
Yeah. And also I noticed that those are like some 60s ass tables too. I don't know why I was looking at those, but I was like, dude, those are like the most 60s tables I've ever seen. But do you think that do you think they have empty rooms on the Enterprise? Like they just built too many rooms and they don't all get used?
Oh, I would imagine so.
I'm assuming the ship's huge.
It's like a bunch of wasted space on there. But they begin the hearing, and Spock immediately waives counsel, so he doesn't want a lawyer. And he waives his right to the hearing and requests instead to be immediately court-martialed, and Kirk just says no, he's not going to do that. So Spock wants to know why, and Kirk tells him that the charge of mutiny requires the presence of 3 command officers, and they only have 2. And Spock says that there are 3, that Pike is still a commanding officer. And Kirk's like, no, he's an invalid. It's like, damn, dude, he can still say yes and no. But Spock says that, Pike is still on the active duty list. And Jose says, yeah, he still is. We didn't have the heart to retire him.
Which that means Pike is still getting paid, technically.
Yeah, like maybe his health insurance is tied to his employment. Because they still use a garbage ass system, so
that's why he can't get fixed, his insurance.
Yeah, well, they didn't have the heart to let him to retire him, so he could keep his insurance and still get all the medical care that he needs. But Jose admits that whatever Spock is up to, he's planned it really well, and it's like no shit, like it's Spock, like pretty much. I assume every Vulcan's like that. Like they have to be absolutely impossible to deal with on the littlest things, just like every little situation. I'm sure they make it annoying.
Are you saying that Vulcans are probably super anal?
I'm sure. Well, I don't know about anal, but like they're just all that logic, everything. Like I think personally, I do a lot of things that are not logical because I'm driven by emotions, and I think being friends with one would just get on my nerves until eventually the most logical thing to do is stop being friends with them. So we skip ahead a little bit. And there's a captain's log, says they've convened a court-martial and that Spock has again waived his counsel and he's actually pleaded guilty to mutiny. And Paul, I'm sure you noticed this, but Kirk and Jose have some fancy court-martial uniforms on.
I was about to say, I was giving you a second to go before I said something. Dude, these outfits, bro, I actually like them. Like they're so... Like they're so similar to everything else, but different at the same time. It looks very formal. It's the first time we've seen these outfits, and I don't know what any of these triangle means at all. I don't understand it because like everybody's just different.
Yeah,
like her has a medal on his. Spock has a little dot on his. They're all cool. My only question is, how come Mr. Captain Pike don't have one on? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what a lazy bastard.
Yeah, like why did they put one on him? You know, like, oh, let me open
He
you up.
coulda-
Let me put the outfit on him.
Wouldn't even get dressed for a hearing.
Yeah, he could have gussied up his wheelchair a little.
That's what I'm saying.
Like paint a racing stripe on it, something.
Put some spinners on his
Yeah.
wheelchair.
A little gold trim. He needs some gold trim too.
Yeah. But they do begin the trial, and Jose asks Spock if he's aware that the death penalty applies because of the Talos 4 involvement, and he's just like, yeah, I'm aware. And so Jose asks him what he's doing and why he's taking Pike there. Spock then requests that they turn on a monitor so that he can explain what's going on. So they turn on a screen, and Spock shows them a video of the Enterprise and Pike from 13 years ago. So we know that like the pilot took place 13 years before this. So it's a really nice frame of reference. Kirk asks Pike if that's really him on the screen, and Pike beeps once, which means yes, that's really him. So Kirk says that it's impossible because no record makes tapes that are as detailed as what they're seeing, and Spock, he asks Spock what they're watching, and he's like, well, I can't say at this time. But Jose asks Pike if any tapes of this sort were made during their voyage, and Pike says no, through his beeps. And then Jose tells Spock that the court doesn't have to view records without knowing its source. And Spock's like, well, you wanted me to explain it. Like, that's what I'm doing. But Jose just says that the evidence is out of order, and Kirk is like contesting it and saying that he wants to see some more. So Jose's like, well, you want to do this because you're friends with Spock and he's your first officer. And Kirk argues, he's like, it's got nothing to do with that. But I mean, like, why wouldn't you want to see that? Like, what's going on? Just out of like curiosity's sake. Like, why are you against that?
Yep, I agree.
So they go back to the screen, and it just runs over like the first part of the pilot episode, The Cage, and we're not going to run through that scene for scene because we've done that before. And if anybody wants to hear that, they can go and check out our very first episode of the podcast.
I do want to point out, though, during the so-called flashback, how does Spock know the point or the parts that he wasn't there for? Like the aliens watching them on their TV.
Well, okay, so we're going to get to that. Like, I want to answer that at this point, but we will get an explanation for that here in a second. But the one thing I did want to point out is that, all of this footage would have been brand new to anybody that watched this during the original run. So like we get, I literally just skipped through this stuff because I've seen it. I was not going to make notes for it. Like, we're not going to go through it again.
Yeah.
But anybody else would have been like, oh, wow, this is like some really interesting stuff. Cause like, Spock looked a little bit different. And it's like a whole different crew. And
yeah, I was about to say, did you notice Spock's eyebrows were more upward and bushy?
Yeah, he was feeling a lot more expressive that day, apparently.
Well, a lot
like
of
I forgot to trim my eyebrows.
A lot of the stuff I'm looking back and noticing now, I'm like, oh, I forgot how less colorful it was and how less. I remember mentioning that before about the pilot. Whatever. I look back and I was like, wow, like it reminded me how much this show has grown.
Yeah, if anything, it does serve as a really good reminder of like the improvements that they've made over the short time that they've been running.
For us, because we watched the pilot. For other people, it's like, and maybe they might get it as they're watching it. But for us, watching the pilot already, we already seen it. So it's like, Do
you think that for people that were seeing this for the first time, like that footage looked like it could have been from 13 years ago? Like just because it looked a little more dated than what they were currently airing?
Maybe.
Yeah, but so Jose asks or says that Spock is manufacturing everything that they're seeing on the screen, and Spock asks Pike if everything that they're seeing is how it happened, and he responds by beeping once for yes. So Spock says that after seeing what happened, if they want to turn the ship back, he can release manual control, and Jose gets pissed. And he's like, hey, you're in no condition to be bargaining here. And he says he's heard enough, and like he's done with this, and Kirk says that he votes to continue since he hasn't heard the full story yet. And Jose votes to not continue, and he says like, yeah, now we're deadlocked. And Kirk points out that Pike needs to vote as well. So Jose asks Pike if he wants to continue, and he beeps once that he wants to. But like, again, how could you not want to continue this? Like, it's interesting stuff. Like, you asked the dude to explain, like he's explaining, and you're getting to see this, footage of a classified event that like nobody else is ever getting to see. And he's like, I'm sick of this shit. And he's just done.
Well, what he's pissed off about is the way Spock is manipulating the system. Has nothing. He don't give a shit about what happened.
I feel like I'd still be curious to see it through.
Yeah, but I think it's more about him. Like, oh, he committed a mutiny. that's the ultimate. That's like committing treason for us. That's the ultimate
Yeah.
betrayal. You can't discuss why you committed treason. We don't give it. You die. Like there's no. You don't get to. Oh, why did it for this reason? Nobody cares about your reasons. You committed treason. You're done. So he.
Well,
Yeah.
I do agree, but you also deserve a fair trial if you're going to be put to death.
Well,
Like, hey,
he
at
had
least give me a fair shot of
yeah, but
explaining why I did it.
nah, you can't. I don't think
Treat,
O'Doon.
treat.
He don't care about all that. He don't care about all that
Well,
extra
I'm
stuff.
not saying that you're wrong, but I feel like he
Well,
does
well,
he deserves his date in court to make sure
this
something
is
was done
but
wrong.
this is his day in court. It just the details don't matter to to the other guy. He's like, look, there's nothing you can say to me to make you justify what you did.
But
Like,
there's two other people that he's trying to change their mind. Well,
yeah,
I don't know if he's really trying to change Pike's mind, but
yeah,
he's trying to at least change Kirk's mind.
yeah. I get it.
But we do go to a commercial break and we come back to a captain's log that just kind of explains what happened in the trial so far. They really got out of the pattern that they were in, where the captain's log were giving. They used to give like a lot more information or like explain something that happened that you didn't get to see, but now they're mostly just explaining what already happened. So thankfully, that means I have less typing to do when I do my notes. But they go back to the screen and they watch a little more footage from the cage. And I have just a couple of quick notes here. I have one that says their transporter took forever compared to like the now ones. It took them just forever in the footage to transport down onto Talos 4. I have a note that says fuck those noisy plants, and one that just says brain dudes, because that's what I called them the first time I saw them before we knew they were the Telosians. But the video ends when Pike gets taken by the Telosians to their like underground prison, and all the guys are shooting at the rocks. And Uhura interrupts the meeting with a message from Starfleet for Commodore Mendez, that's Jose, saying that they've received or that they are receiving a transmission from Talos 4, which is in violation of Starfleet general orders. So that's where that's coming from, Dan. The planet was actually broadcasting this footage to the Enterprise, and that's against the law because that's them contacting or having contact with Talos.
Also, the aliens made sure to put in their point of view of them watching.
Yeah, apparently they had really good security cameras even aboard the Enterprise. So I don't know. Like maybe it's like a mixture of Enterprise records and then Telosian stuff. But I mean, like I get it. It's like they weren't going to go back and like reshoot stuff from different angles and all that. So it makes it a little confusing. Yeah. Yeah, Spock says that the images that they've been seeing are being transmitted from Talos 4. And Uhura goes on to say that Kirk is being relieved of his command and that Jose is to assume command of the Enterprise and disable the vessel if necessary to prevent further contact with Talos 4. So, man, they just really don't want you going to this planet or talking to them. So Jose just repeats that, the penalty for contact with Talos 4 is death, and that Spock has not only finished himself, but he's finished Kirk as well. And Spock goes to argue that, he's like, hey, Kirk didn't know about any of this. It's all my plan. And Jose says that he argues that a captain is responsible for everything that happens on the ship, so it is his fault. And he orders Spock to return the ship to manual control, but Spock says that he respectfully declines. So Jose's like, screw this, court's in recess, I'm out of here. And he leaves and has Pike escorted out. So it's just Spock and Kirk and a couple of security guards in there, and Kirk asks him if he knows what he's doing. He's like, hey, like, are you, like, what are you even doing here? Like, are you sure what you're doing? And Spock is like, hey, just don't stop me. Don't let Jose stop me because I know what I'm doing. We have to see the rest of that transmission. And so Kirk then orders the nearby guards to lock up Spock, and they just take him away. But I feel like those guards should have been like, you ain't my boss. Like, you just heard it. You ain't in charge. You can't tell me what to do. Like, who are you, guy? But that's it. That's the end of the entire episode. They end with Kirk like kind of standing in the room muttering to himself. Dan, what did you think about this?
I actually really enjoyed this episode. I'm glad they're finally going to answer why Pike left the Enterprise, because that's kind of been a question that, we've been thinking about this whole time. Like, hey, what was the reason why he left?
Like green animal women slaves.
I mean, that was always my guess, and it's kind of showing that it affected him. But I'm interested that they're closing this loophole or this loose thread on why Pike isn't the captain anymore. So I'm glad to see, or I'm interesting to see how they wrap everything up. So I enjoyed the episode.
Like I'm kind of torn on it. Like okay, so we get our first two-parter, and it's with stuff that, you know, we've already dealt with just a little bit added in there, which, again, you know, during the original run, you wouldn't have seen any of that footage up to this point. So that probably would have made it a lot more interesting then. Like I liked the episode, but it was just kind of meh for me. Like I like the mystery of it. I want to see, you know, obviously how it ends, but I don't think it's up there with the best that we've seen. I don't think it's down there with Mudd's Women, but it ain't no Dagger of the Mind or Corbomite Maneuver. And that's kind of where I am with that. I'm just kind of like, I'll see what happens. What about for you, Paul?
Okay, I get to do me. This entire episode was 100% trash. Okay, this is after watching the 10 of 10 episode, the Carbonite movie. This is like a -20, and the reason it's a -20, it's Brandon's fault, and I'll explain to you why. Because when we first started watching this show, Brandon was like, "Hey guys, let's watch the original pilot," and I was like, "Oh, what a grand idea! Let's do that." So we proceeded to watch it. Now we're in the middle of an episode where the original pilot is the entire episode almost. So I'm watching that episode. I'm like, oh, I've seen that before, bored. I've seen that before, bored. Oh, 10 minutes of this. Oh, yeah, I know that already. Bored. I mean, I think it kind of looked better this time. Like they did a digital remaster, like level 2. So like I think it looked better. At the same time, I was like, yo, man, this episode is, I don't even know. Like I wish I would have watched the original pilot.
Listen.
Or I just wish I wouldn't watched it. Like if I thought they were ever going to call back to it, and this time they called back to it, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I feel like it's not really Brendan's fault as much as the next two episodes. I feel for me are going to be a task, because all the good suspense I should get from not knowing what happened, I know already.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Since I know already, I'm just like, oh, because Spock is like telling this story that I've already heard before. So it kind of ruins this episode for me. Like, I don't know if that really explains it right, but like I know.
Oh yeah, the things you shouldn't know, you already know.
I already know. Yeah. So for this whole, like, the only thing I found interesting about this one is what Spock's doing. I don't know why he's doing it, but I do. But him explaining the whole story and the whole journey, I'm like, okay, I know it already. I watched the pilot. I've seen the pilot already. So that's my only issue. It just, it kind of ruined it for myself by watching the pilot already, because I didn't know the pilot was going to be a callback ever in this show.
Right.
So like,
yeah, I would have imagined that they would do that, because like nobody who does that. Like, who uses an unaired pilot for that?
Nobody, exactly. Which is another genius thing they did. So like, it's smart, but unfortunately, I watched the original already because, you know, Brandon said we should watch it. Just so everybody knows right now.
Well, we had the discsion on whether or not to start with the pilot. And don't listen to him. Netflix said to start with it.
No. Brandon said,
Netflix.
No. Brandon said, let's watch the pilot first. I thought, oh, yeah. And now I'm regretting that moment. So now I got to sit the 2 episodes now that I feel like 50% of them are going to be about the pilot. I mean, I'm good, though. Like, I feel like hoping next episode they go through it, it gets better or whatever. I know that this 2-parter should have been more epic than what it is, because I've seen the pilot already.
I think there's going to be a huge payoff in the second episode.
That's
Hopefully they do a little bit better of a job, like skipping over the stuff that we've already seen from the pilot and get more of to the meat of the episode.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you need the pilot to justify these 2 episodes, though. So, like, I feel like the pilot's going to be weaved in there, like, more and more. It's just, we already seen the pilot, so it kind of, we're like, oh, man. Like, damn.
Hey, if we get a good payoff, I'll be all right with it.
If you think about what they showed, it was, like, not even a quarter of the pilot. So, like, we still have to go through the rest of it.
They showed, like, the first 10 minutes of the pilot. Because they went through, they hit the place, they landed, and that was the end. They still haven't showed everything else yet. They still haven't showed the pain and the mind stuff and everything, and the choice between the women. I remember all that. So like, it's just, like I said, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh man, it kind of sucks that I watched the pilot already.
And listen, when we first started watching this, when we started on Netflix, the pilot was listed as #1, and we agreed to watch that damn thing. And then when we had to move to Amazon, it was still #1. And then when we had to move to Paramount Plus, it's still the first one that they say you should watch on there. That
Yeah,
wasn't me.
yeah. Guys, it's all Brandon. Just so you know, it's definitely Brandon.
No, I think you're 100% right though. Like that's my issue with it as well. Like the big thing we shouldn't know, we already know. So
Yeah, we already know. So it kind
we're
of,
just gonna kind of have to like crawl through the next one. I feel like.
yeah.
I mean, I am interested to see the conclusion. I want to see what Spock's doing, but yeah, I'm just gonna skip over the parts that I've already seen. Like I said, that saves me so much time in terms of like note taking and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things. But overall, the episode's dumpster fire. But I bet you got people out there who probably liked it if you didn't watch the pilot. But unfortunately, if you're hanging out with us the whole time, we watched the pilot already. So
Yep.
let's grit together. Let's push through these part one and part twos, and hopefully it's a good payoff in the conclusion of this.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan, for making us watch the pilot.
Yeah, man.
Oh, blame me now, huh? I see how you guys are.
Oh man.
Yeah, that is going to be it. The next one we're going to watch is going to be season 1, episode 12, The Menagerie Part 2. And we hopefully get a conclusion to this. We're on Twitter at WWST_podcast. You can email us at WWSTpod@gmail.com. Find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and that does include YouTube. And again, toss us a rating, leave us a comment, like, dislike in between. It's always good to know where we stand. But that is going to be it for me this time. And I do want to say thank you to everybody that stuck with us for this. Sorry if we ruined this episode with the pilot. That was absolutely Dan's fault and definitely 100% not mine. And that's all
I
got
got confused and saw it. I was watching Star Wars. I'm sorry. I didn't do
the
my
Star
homework
Wars
correctly.
pilot. Okay. Yeah, the Star Wars pilot. Yeah, that's it for me. Everybody take it easy.
Yep.
Later.